Level 1. The IMAT Anomaly. The wet slap of heavy rain against the single-pane window of your bedroom offers the only sound in the early morning quiet. It is July 10, 2026 in Wilmington, Delaware. At exactly 6:15 in the morning, the cheap digital alarm clock on your nightstand remains dark. The surface of your phone illuminates. A brief, harsh vibration rattles the device against the cheap laminate wood. You reach over, the cold glass of the screen meeting your thumb. The notification is an automated text message from your retail bank. It does not contain a marketing alert or a low balance warning. It contains a ledger update. The text plainly states that a Fedwire transfer of $34 million has cleared your personal checking account. You do not sit up in shock. You do not gasp. You simply stare at the illuminated numbers, tracing the 9 digits, verifying the placement of the commas. You place the phone face down on the nightstand. The screen goes dark. You walk to the kitchen, the floorboards cold beneath your feet, and pour a cup of leftover coffee into a ceramic mug. The liquid is lukewarm and carries a bitter, metallic tang. You drink it in silence, staring out at the gray morning light filtering through the blinds. You know how the banking system operates. You are a Senior Treasury Operations Analyst for a regional logistics firm. Your entire professional existence revolves around the quiet digital movement of corporate capital. You know that anomalies of this scale are never magical gifts. They are systemic failures, and they leave massive digital footprints. By 7:30 in the morning, you are sitting in your cheap office chair at work, the cushion sinking slightly on the left side where the foam has worn down. The low hum of a fluorescent light bulb on the verge of burning out buzzes above your cubicle. You log into your secure desktop banking portal. The interface is sluggish, loading the heavy data packets of the overnight batch processing. At exactly 8:30, the primary dashboard materializes. The balance sits in bold black text at the top right of the screen. $34,012,409.16. You bypass the visual summary and dig directly into the raw transaction ledger. You extract the extended metadata file, parsing through the alphanumeric string attached to the deposit. You locate the input message accountability data tracking number. The IMAT code reveals the entire architecture of the mistake. The funds originated from a corporate treasury account held by a massive retail conglomerate. The transaction notes specify a commercial real estate acquisition settlement. You cross-reference the routing codes and the beneficiary line. The error becomes mathematically obvious. A tired escrow agent and a major New York title company transposed a single digit in the receiving account number. That single keystroke routed the acquisition capital away from a commercial escrow holding and directly into your standard tier retail checking account. The money is absolutely real. It is sitting in your ledger, generating zero interest and creating a massive liability sinkhole. Level 2. The Article Four-A realization. You open a new tab on your browser and navigate to the legal databases you frequently use for your daily corporate reconciliations. You pull up the Uniform Commercial Code, scrolling through the dense, archaic text until you reach Article Four-A, the framework governing commercial funds transfers. You read the strict liability parameters line by line, the glow of the monitor reflecting in your eyes. You understand exactly what the text dictates. Fedwire transactions are irrevocable upon receipt. Unlike a standard consumer automated clearinghouse transfer, a Fedwire settles instantly with central bank money. The Uniform Commercial Code explicitly outlines that because your account number perfectly matched the transposed number on the incoming wire instructions, your retail bank was legally obligated to accept the funds. They followed the mechanical instructions flawlessly. Therefore, the transaction is legally complete. You lean back in the uneven chair. You know that the originating title company and the retail conglomerate are currently experiencing an institutional panic. They cannot simply reach into your account and extract the $34 million. An administrative reversal of a completed Fedwire requires the active, documented consent of the beneficiary. You must authorize the return. If your bank attempts to debit your account without your permission, they violate federal banking regulations and absorb the entire $34 million liability themselves. Retail banks are terrified of liability. They will not move a single cent without your signature. You recognize the architectural strength of your position. The burden of action does not rest on you. It rests entirely on the entity that sent the funds. The only bridge back to their money requires your explicit cooperation. Level 3, the initial contact. At 10:15 in the morning, your desk phone remains silent, but your personal mobile device begins to vibrate aggressively against the rough texture of a recycled legal pad. The caller ID displays the main line of your local bank branch. You watch the screen pulse with the incoming call. You do not pick it up. You let the vibration continue until the line rolls over to voicemail. 3 minutes later, a notification appears indicating a new voice message. You place your phone on the desk, tap the speaker icon, and listen to the audio compression crackle. The voice belongs to the branch manager. The tone is heavily strained, attempting to mask sheer panic with casual customer service jargon. The manager requests that you call back immediately to verbally authorize a routine administrative adjustment regarding an overnight ledger anomaly. You delete the voicemail. Verbal authorizations are fragile and easily manipulated by compliance departments. You require a meticulous paper trail. You open a blank word processing document and draft a sterile 3-sentence letter stating that you acknowledge an irregular ledger balance and require all further communication. You require all further communication regarding the matter to be sent via certified mail to your home address. You print the letter. The office printer leaves a faint, pale stripe down the center of the official document, a testament to a failing toner cartridge. You sign your name with a steady hand, fold the paper, and mail it during your lunch break. That evening, your older brother visits your apartment. He is a middle school history teacher, a man governed by intense caution and an absolute fear of authority. He stands in your kitchen, his damp wool coat smelling of the evening rain, staring at the printed account ledger you left on the counter. His face pales. He reads the balance, looks at you, and points a shaking finger at the paper. Just call them and reverse it before you get arrested. Tam, you take the paper from the counter and slide it into a manila folder. You do not argue with him. You do not explain the Uniform Commercial Code or the mechanics of central bank liquidity. Your brother views the institution as a moral authority that punishes mistakes. You view the institution as a rigid algorithm constrained by its own rules. You lock the folder in a cheap metal filing cabinet, the drawer sliding shut with a sharp metallic click. You offer him a glass of water, effectively ending the conversation. Level 4, the threat escalation. The next morning, the corporate machinery shifts from panic to aggression. A private courier arrives at the reception desk of your office building just before 11 o'clock. The receptionist hands you a heavy, oversized cardstock envelope. You carry it to your cubicle, feeling the dense weight of the premium paper. You break the seal. Inside is a formal cease and desist declaration from a prestigious white shoe law firm based in Manhattan, acting as outside counsel. The document is an exercise in legal intimidation. The letterhead is embossed. The paragraphs are dense with threats of federal prosecution for civil conversion, unjust enrichment. They demand the immediate execution of a reversal waiver. The final page contains a printed web address and an access code directing you to a secure digital document portal. You open your browser and type the address exactly as printed. The portal loads, displaying a sterile white interface with the conglomerate's logo at the top. The waiver document sits in the center of the screen. At the very bottom of the text, a bright graphical interface element waits for your interaction. A blinking green cursor hovers over the Authorize Reversal button. The cursor pulses rhythmically, a steady hypnotic flash demanding compliance. It represents the easy way out. It represents immediate relief from the looming threat of corporate litigation. You watch the green line appear and disappear against the harsh white background. You do not touch the mouse. You reach up and close the browser window, severing the connection. You will not be bullied into fixing their multi-million-dollar clerical error for free. Level 5, the FinCEN deadlock. You understand that if the corporate lawyers file an emergency injunction, a local judge might bypass your consent and order the bank to freeze and extract the funds. You need an impenetrable federal shield. You turn to the exact tools you use in your daily profession as a Treasury Operations Analyst. You log into the secure external portal for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. You initiate the drafting of a formal Suspicious Activity Report. You fill out the institutional identification fields, inputting your bank's routing numbers and your personal account details. In the narrative section, you write with clinical precision. You document that a massive, unverified wire transfer of $34 million has materialized. You check the specific boxes indicating potential money laundering, unverified fund origination, and anomalous volume. You attach the raw IMAD data as a supplementary file. You review the form one final time and submit the report to the federal database. The digital confirmation receipt generates on your screen. You save it as a secure PDF. By filing this federal document, you have weaponized the Bank Secrecy Act against your own bank. The safe harbor provisions of federal anti-money laundering statutes dictate an absolute freeze on the reported assets. Your bank is now legally gagged. They cannot reverse the wire administratively. They cannot inform the conglomerate why the funds are locked, and they cannot touch the money while a federal review is pending. Federal reviews for transactions of this size typically mandate a minimum lockup of 30 to 60 days. You have effectively trapped the conglomerate's capital behind a wall of federal bureaucracy that no corporate lawyer can breach. Level 6. The time squeeze. With the funds secured behind a federal hold, you need to understand the exact timeline of your adversary. You spend your afternoon break navigating the database of the Securities and Exchange Commission. You search the ticker symbol of the retail conglomerate. You filter the results for the past 30 days and locate a Form 8K filing which mandates the disclosure of material corporate events. You read through the dense financial terminology. The filing details a massive commercial real estate acquisition. The conglomerate is purchasing a distressed shopping mall portfolio. Buried in the third section of the document is the critical leverage point. The acquisition contains a strict closing timeline. The transaction must settle by Friday, July 17, 2026. If the conglomerate fails to deliver the escrow capital by that date, they breach the contract, forfeit millions of dollars in non-refundable deposits, and lose the asset entirely. You check the calendar on your desk. It is Tuesday. The $34 million sitting frozen in your account is their escrow cash. A 30-day federal hold will entirely destroy their acquisition. They do not have the liquidity to source a replacement $34 million in 3 days. They are completely out of time, and they are entirely vulnerable. The balance of power has definitively shifted. They are no longer a terrifying corporate monolith. They are a desperate buyer backed into a corner, bleeding time. Level 7. The settlement counter. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a new email arrives in your personal inbox. The sender is the lead litigation partner who drafted the cease and desist letter. The tone of the email is noticeably different. The aggressive threats of federal prosecution have been replaced by a tense, strained attempt at negotiation. The lawyer offers you a $10,000 inconvenience fee in exchange for your immediate digital signature on the reversal waiver. They plead an administrative emergency. You do not reply immediately. You wait exactly 2 hours to let their anxiety compound. At 4 o'clock, you draft your response. You decline the $10,000. You state that due to the complexity of the unverified deposit, you have already flagged the transaction for federal review. You explain that you are willing to formally withdraw your suspicion and execute the reversal waiver, but the cost of your time is no longer negotiable. You outline your demand. You require a 1.5% indemnification and consulting fee. You type the exact number, $510,000. You stipulate that this fee must be wired directly to an external trust account before you interact with the digital portal. Furthermore, you demand the payment be classified as a fully taxable, legally documented vendor settlement accompanied by a completed Form 109 miscellaneous. You are engaging in legal extortion via bureaucratic delay, ensuring that when the money arrives, the tax liability is clear and the income is perfectly legitimate. You press send, close your email client, and leave the office. Level 8, the asset freeze. The retaliation is silent and immediate. On Wednesday morning, you stop at a local deli to buy a breakfast sandwich. You hand the cashier your standard bank debit card. The cashier swipes it, waits a moment, and hands it back, shaking his head. The terminal reads a decline error. You frown, hand him a $5 bill, and walk out to your car. Sitting in the driver's seat, you open the mobile application for your retail bank. The interface loads, but the $34 million is gone. In its place is a negative balance code. Your available balance reads negative $99,999,000. It is a hard compliance freeze. The bank's internal security algorithm, triggered by the ongoing dispute, has completely severed your access to the institution. Your legitimate salary from the logistics firm, your designated grocery money, the funds allocated for your mortgage payment, everything is trapped behind the administrative wall. They are attempting to starve you out. You drive back to your apartment. You unlock a small fireproof lockbox under your bed and extract a secondary high-interest credit card issued by an entirely separate financial institution. You hold the plastic card in your hand, feeling the raised numbers. The financial pressure is absolute. You open your laptop and navigate back to the secure digital document portal. The interface loads. The blinking green cursor hovers over the Authorize Reversal button. The cursor seems heavier now, mocking your frozen accounts. It pulses steadily, offering an immediate release from the financial starvation the bank has engineered. Your finger rests on the trackpad. You hold your breath, staring at the green light, feeling the immense weight of the corporate pressure. You pull your hand away, close the laptop, and slide the backup credit card into your wallet. You will not break. Level 9. The legal retention. You recognize that handling the final stage of this transaction alone is a tactical error. The frozen account proves the bank is willing to bend internal rules to force a resolution. You need an aggressive intermediary. You use the high-interest credit card to pay a massive, non-refundable retainer fee to a specialized financial litigation attorney based in Philadelphia. You sit in your car, parked outside your office, listening to the attorney on the phone. You explain the IMAD tracking code, the strict liability of Article 4-A, the Active Suspicious Activity Report, and the Friday deadline for the commercial real estate closing. The attorney listens quietly, absorbing the mechanical perfection of the trap. He immediately drafts a formal letter of representation and contacts the conglomerate's outside counsel. You remain on hold, listening to the dead air of the muted conference line, while your attorney speaks directly to the lead litigation partner in New York. The conversation is not an argument, it is a mathematical dictation of reality. Your lawyer outlines that the federal government has a lock on the funds. There's absolutely no legal path that can bypass the financial crimes enforcement network. The only variable that can accelerate the release is your voluntary cooperation to clear the compliance flag. The corporate lawyers yell through the phone, threatening bar complaints and civil ruin. Your attorney waits for them to run out of breath. My client's demands are final and legally sound. Dodgeball. The line goes quiet. The conglomerate realizes the inescapable truth. The cost of losing the mall acquisition far outweighs the cost of your extortion. They have to pay the toll. Level 10. The Fedwire return. It is Friday morning. You sit in your attorney's office in downtown Philadelphia. The room smells of polished mahogany, old paper, and industrial carpet cleaner. The rain has stopped, leaving the city skyline sharp and clear through the floor-to-ceiling windows. On the heavy wooden desk in front of you rests a finalized contract. It is a Form 1099 Miscellaneous Consulting and Indemnification Agreement. The corporate entity has capitulated entirely. Your lawyer slides a heavy black tablet across the desk towards you. The screen displays the secure digital document portal. At the bottom of the verified waiver form, the visual interface waits for your command. The blinking green cursor hovers over the Authorize Reversal button. For the past 4 days, that cursor represented a threat, a trap, and a source of intense financial starvation. Now it represents the final toll bridge of a perfectly executed systemic extraction. You pick up the digital stylus. The plastic is cold in your hand. You press the tip of the stylus against the glass directly over the pulsing green cursor and sign your name. You tap the confirmation box. The screen refreshes, displaying a green checkmark indicating the waiver is executed. You log into your banking application on your phone. You watch the ledger. The $34 million vanishes instantly, pulled back into the central banking ether, clearing the negative balance freeze. You sit in the quiet office and wait. Exactly 1 hour later, a new notification chimes from a completely different banking application. You open the application. The ledger updates. A clean, untouchable Fedwire transfer of $510,000 has settled into your account. The transaction notes list it as a verified vendor payment. You lock the phone, place it in your pocket, and stand up. You walk out of the office and back into the street, maintaining your ordinary routine, carrying the quiet, absolute triumph of a flawless institutional victory.